Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, programmers of all ages, welcome back to yet another episode of Programming in HaxeFlixel, where we make a very interesting top-down RPG bullet hell style game. In any case, so last time when we left off, we had the issue of the projectiles not playing their death animation upon death, as well as the collision detection going skew whenever we it just wouldn't work sometimes, and other times it would work. Now I will be completely honest, I was not able to get this fixed on my own. I had some help, and the help came from this Twitter person who suggested using FLX world bounds set, which apparently collision detection goes completely off the rails whenever you are outside the camera. Now, I don't know if I would implement it like this if I made a framework, but this is how it is. This is how HaxeFlixel does it. So we will just follow them. So thank you, Kino Rose. You are an absolute lifesaver. So moving on. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is head on over to playstate.hx. If you open that and go up to the top where we create it, so in here, above everything else, we want to say flxg.worldbounds.set, and we want to make this between 5,000, or starts at 5,000, minus 5,000 on the x-axis, minus 5,000 on the y-axis, and we want to make it 10,000 long by 10,000 wide. Now, why would I do this? Well, because I figured that our play zone would never go beyond the bounds of 10,000 by 10,000, and if it does, we can just scale it up, but for testing purposes and possibly for going on beyond this point, 10,000 by 10,000 should be all right. Okay, next up we have the projectile animation. Now for this part I couldn't exactly get it right, so if we go over to projectile.hx and just scroll down a bit, so the way it would usually work is we would override, so we would say override function, and then we want to override the kill function, and then we say alive equals false, animation dot play explosion, and we want to force it to play, so true. So if animation dot finished, so if the explosion animation is done, then we want to say exists equals false, and that should do it. Now there is one issue that I will show you. So I ended up not doing this and just accepting the fact that we don't have an explosion animation anymore. But I first want to show you why I did that. So we can just scroll down and delete the explode function because we don't need it. We override the kill function. So over here in playstate.hx, we just want to scroll down to wherever we see projectile.explode and we want to delete it. Cool. Now if we run lime test hl debug. Okay, so before we try this out, head on over to projectile, set the movement speed back to 600, and in playstate we want to add, say, spawn 10 of each of the monsters. Okay, now let's retry this again. Now I will admit, during debugging, one of the things I did is I updated to the newest Hax version, which you can do by using the same steps I showed you in the first video. So I updated the Hax version, HaxeFlixel, OpenFL, everything. I reinstalled Hax, completely removed it, reinstalled it, on the newer version, so I'm running 4.21. Now it comes with an issue where if I press F5, for some reason it doesn't like pop up immediately. I'm having issues with debugging. As you saw, I don't really have debugging in this video, which is a bit annoying, but we can live with it. And also there is error messages that I'll show you in a sec, but this is just not running. What is it doing? See, it's the debugging, no, the autocomplete has this issue where it can't find openfl.internals.extraparams. I don't know what the issue is there, but that's the reason I don't have debugging, and this is just taking forever. I don't know what is going on. I don't have anything running, so I'm just going to close that. So it's a bit buggy. I wouldn't recommend that you update with me just yet, but if you have already updated to the newest version, it's fine. We can just go lime test HL. Now you will have to set up lime with HL, which is a bit of a process. So when you originally say, so you would initially go lime setup HL, and that would ask you to download the HL files. You can just put that under your library, your HaxeFlixel or your HaxeLib library. You can then just link it to lime from there. But that should be basic debugging by now, so I'm not going to show you how I did it. In any case, we can just go lime test HL for hashlink, and we want debugging for the debug overview. So just wait for this to finish. Okay, it's about to finish compiling. Wait for it. Oh, there it is. Cool. So now you can see that it works. But you'll notice when we do manage to hit a player, you might see a bit on your side that we do play the death animation. But the issue with the death animation is that it doesn't stop the projectile in its tracks. The projectile just keeps flying by, and you can still damage 3-4 other enemies behind that projectile, and that's not what we want. We want it to stop on impact and explode. Now I could say that upon impact, set the projectile's velocity to 0 and then play the kill animation, but the issue with that is that it doesn't work. The projectile just stands there and explodes. It doesn't despawn, it doesn't stop, it just chills there. So I just decided to scrap that altogether rather than just having it go on continuously. Now we can just go to over to kill. In your game you could choose to keep it up, but I'm going to choose to remove it. But I'm going to keep it in the source code in case you want it. Now there's one more thing before we go that I want to set. So I can actually show you in game. So if we rerun this command, currently the collision box for the projectile is a 16 by 16, although the projectile itself is only 4 pixels by 4 pixels, but on the sprite sheet is 16 by 16. That's why we set it as 16 by 16. But then the collision box took that, so the collision box for the projectile is a bit bigger than I'd like, so I just want to resize that. But I first want to show you. So if you go over into the game and not die continuously, you can press F2 to get your overlay, and then you can press on this little square at the top, and you can see the projectile's red box is a bit bigger than the actual projectiles. Now what we want to do is resize that box so that it's the same size as the projectile. So over in new, we can scroll down to after we added the animations, and before we set the velocity, so we want to say set size, is 4 by 4, so 4 pixels by 4 pixels, and we want to offset the collision box 6 pixels down and 6 pixels to the right, and that should be the right size. Now if we go back and compile it, see you in a sec when it's done compiling. Okay, it's done compiling. Now if we press F2 and turn on collision box, you can also turn off these things. Now if you see, the projectiles hitbox is the same size as the actual projectiles now, which works a lot better, and you can see that collision detection is still on point. So if we press F2, so there is no oversized red border, but if you look closely you can see that the red border is on top of the projectile. And well, that's it for today's tutorial. Wait, but before you go, I just want to remind you that if you like the video, drop a like, subscribe. It really helps me as a channel, especially since I'm pretty new to this. And also, if you would like to support the channel, I don't have a Patreon, but I do have a merch store which sells awesome hoodies with programming and framework icons on them. So you can see there's a C++ hoodie, an R, a Clojure, an open source, Vulkan, OpenGL, Unreal, and I'm adding new things all the time, so feel free to come drop by. It is an absolutely awesome store, and I hope to see you next time. Please enjoy your day, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.